Toji Fushiguro. Known as one of the absolute strongest characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, the ultimate wildcard who successfully dismantled the strongest sorcerers of his era, Gojo Satoru and Gojo Satoru, a man who reigned supreme before ultimately falling to Gojo, who experienced a miraculous, godlike awakening at the very brink of death. But beyond those legendary feats, Toji is a character we can never truly fully comprehend. We are endlessly fascinated by him, yet we can rarely pinpoint the exact reason why. Is it his overwhelming physical dominance, or the chilling, suffocating aura he radiates every time he steps onto the screen? In a world entirely dictated by cursed energy and innate techniques, where the entire social, political, and hierarchical structure operates within those boundaries, Toji stands as a pure anomaly. He is a logical error in the matrix, a variable that should have been completely irrelevant to the story, yet ultimately reshaped its entire trajectory. Psychologically, Toji exists entirely outside the system. There is no grand idealism driving his actions, nor is there any ideological vendetta. He holds no interest in reforming his clan, nor does he harbor a desire to slaughter them to the last man, as Maki eventually would. Toji does not seek validation or recognition. He operates purely out of pragmatism for financial gain, gambling to either multiply or recklessly throw away everything he owns. In a universe where curses manifest directly from human emotion, he moves without emotion and without a curse. He is utterly unclassifiable. To comprehend how Toji became this cold and detached, we must examine the rot of his birthplace, the Zen'in Clan. This aristocratic family operates on a toxic set of values that prizes cursed techniques above all else, ruthlessly discarding any bloodline members who lack them. Born with a unique manifestation of heavenly restriction that completely wiped his cursed energy to absolute zero, Toji was branded as a defect and placed at the absolute bottom of the clan's social hierarchy. In the eyes of the Zen'in family, Toji did not even deserve to be called human. While the series does not provide a meticulous breakdown of his childhood, creator Gege Akutami revealed that Toji was systematically ostracized by the clan from a tender age. He was frequently thrown into a training discipline pit filled with grade 2 cursed spirits, which was essentially an execution dumping ground for the family. It was within that horrific environment that Toji earned his iconic scar at the corner of his mouth, surviving and consistently overpowering them through sheer physical grit since his youth. This barbaric upbringing warped Toji's psyche into something profoundly dark. He was continuously conditioned by his family's abuse to believe he was worthless. Consequently, deep within his soul, a desperate urge festered to prove the Zen'in clan wrong. Tragically, however, Toji ended up internalizing the very slurs used against him. He adopted the derogatory term monkey, the elitist sorcerer slang for ordinary humans, to describe himself, while viewing individuals like Gojo Satoru or Gojo Satoru as the blessed ones. Toji's terrifying strength is rooted in the fundamental metaphysical laws of the Jujutsu world, where restrictions and high risks serve as currency to multiply power. Just as Nanami limits his cursed energy via overtime constraints, or Sukuna intentionally leaves his domain open to drastically expand its attack radius, Toji's heavenly restriction operates as an absolute binding vow established at birth. The Jujutsu system stripped away every drop of his cursed energy, and in return, granted him a physical vessel that shatters the baseline limitations of human biology. Professionally, this trade-off transformed Toji into the ultimate peerless Sorcerer Killer. Sorcerers naturally track and detect threats by sensing the residual flow of cursed energy, but Toji exists as a literal blind spot, a complete void on their radar. During the Hidden Inventory arc, Toji's brilliant tactical mind proved that his edge didn't come from being better at jujutsu, but from understanding the precise boundaries of the system and striking from completely outside of it. He did not engage Gojo Satoru carelessly. Instead, Toji engineered a calculated war of attrition, keeping Gojo on high alert for days during the escort mission of Riko Amanai. This systematically bled dry the mental focus and stamina of Gojo's Six Eyes, waiting until his target's guard naturally eroded over time. To preserve his absolute invisibility, Toji concealed cursed tools like the inverted Spear of Heaven inside a miniature inventory curse, which he swallowed into his own stomach to prevent any cursed energy from leaking out. He struck precisely when Gojo's automated defenses collapsed, then proceeded to execute his target with the cold precision of a mundane assassin. He later dismantled Geto Suguru by ruthlessly disrupting the rhythm of his curse manipulation in close-quarters combat. Toji systematically brought down the strongest sorcerers of that generation because he refused to play by their rules. Deep down, he was constantly fighting, driven by a desperate need to prove himself, and for the first time, he lost because he chose to ignore that inner unease. However, Toji's fragile psychological underbelly was laid bare immediately following that absolute victory. When Gojo Satoru miraculously reversed his own death using the reverse curse technique, Toji's professional assassin logic should have dictated an immediate retreat. There was zero financial incentive to engage a newly evolved Gojo, and Toji had prepared no contingency plan for such an absurd scenario. Had Toji truly been a pragmatist, driven solely by money, he would have walked away. Instead, he stayed because his pride and deep-seated insecurities completely hijacked his rationality. The Gojo Satoru standing before him was the ultimate emblem of the Jujutsu world that had discarded him as trash. Toji felt an ecstatic, ravenous hunger for the fight because he believed that if a mere monkey like himself could execute the literal god of the sorcerer civilization, the entire foundational value system of the Zen'in Clan would instantly disintegrate. He let his ego dictate his actions, ignored his own lethal instincts, and was subsequently vaporized by Gojo's hollow purple. In his final moments, Toji experienced a profound wave of regret. He realized he had fatally veered off his own path. He regretted spending the twilight of his life chasing validation and a desperate sense of proof from people who never actually cared about him to begin with. The Toji driven by this hollow ego was a version of himself that had temporarily died when he met his wife, Mama Megumi. The woman who had once anchored him with tenderness, allowed him to feel genuine love, and inspired him to discard the Zen'in moniker to proudly carry the name Fushiguro. The version of Toji that possessed true strength was the one who chose to care for what actually mattered, the people he loved, rather than the validation of power. In his final moments, Toji's thoughts turned to his son, whom he had deliberately named Megumi, meaning blessing. Toji had previously arranged to sell Megumi to the Zen'in Clan, knowing his son's innate Ten Shadows technique would grant him immense value there. A desperate, heartbreaking decision from a shattered father who genuinely believed Megumi's survival would be better guaranteed within the toxic system than abandoned with him on the streets. Yet before his breath failed him, Toji placed one final gamble. He revealed Megumi's existence to Gojo Satoru, implicitly trusting his fiercest enemy to intercept and sever his son's ties to the predatory Zen'in Clan. Toji died with a gaping void in the left side of his torso, leaving a blind bet with the only sorcerer powerful enough to understand the weight of pride behind that choice. This multi-generational tragedy finally found its quiet resolution years later during the Shibuya incident. Resurrected as a mindless, soulless puppet operating purely on primal combat instincts, Toji effortlessly butchered the special grade curse Dagon before his honed instincts locked onto Megumi. In the midst of their frantic, high-speed duel, a fragment of his humanity, buried deep within his soul, managed to override the mindless programming of the seance technique. Toji paused to ask the boy his name. When Megumi replied that his name was Fushiguro and not Zen'in, a massive, genuine smile broke across Toji's face. He found peace, knowing Gojo had honored his word. His son had grown up safely outside the cyclic rot of the Zen'in family line. Toji then drove a blade into his own skull, choosing suicide to protect his son without ever revealing his true identity. because he still viewed himself as far too low to ever be recognized as a father. Ultimately, Toji stands in stark contrast to Maki. Maki slaughtered the Zen'in Clan because she possessed an ideological agenda to tear down the system. Toji never bothered because he understood that radical vengeance would never alter a life that was already fundamentally broken. The Zen'in Clan only continued to exist because Toji simply allowed them to live. Toji remains a pure anomaly, standing completely outside the boundaries of the Jujutsu world, the strongest monkey who shattered the entire established order of the Sorcerer Society, yet ultimately lost because he was never quite strong enough to understand or forgive himself.